in Mandarin. Don't know.
Okay, the one person who's not in your frame is Justin.
So I can.
Levi, can you?
Yep. You move it a little bit the other direction. There's now a bunch of it. A little bit more. And you're good.
Is he in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start with a quick intro, and then I do want to go around and hear from you guys. But as Alex said, my name is Justin Baer, and I'm here based in Dayton. Run a company called Welcome to College, and my quick background is I was born in western Pennsylvania, grew up in a small town called Sharon, Pennsylvania, and moved to Cincinnati when I was about 10 years old, and grew up, went to high school, grade school and high school in Cincinnati. I attended Moeller High School, private all-boys Catholic high school in Cincinnati, and I was the first in my family to go to a private school. In high school I went public school all through until high school. I shared my story during the TEDx talk about my tour to the University of Dayton. I had no interest in coming to Dayton for a long time. I'd never been here. Just had that perception of like, why would I leave Cincinnati or go to a smaller market than a bigger market for college. My tour to the university completely, and I'll share some more stories from that. Just an incredible tour, and the person that gave my tour, I didn't get into this during the talk, but I ended up forming a relationship with, from the standpoint of this guy became one of my best friends when I attended the University of Dayton. And so he ended up being a great mentor of mine. He was the president of the student government. Just something that happened on that tour, and the fact that day I had him as my tour guide, everything kind of came together for me in regards to that being the best fit for where I needed to be for my next 4 years. And it was. I had an incredible experience. I graduated with a business management degree. Decided to not go into business. I had some offers to go to Chicago and work for some companies doing marketing analysts, things like that. I completely decided to go back to work at my high school. Did a huge shift. A lot of people were like, that's interesting. You get this business degree, and now I'm going to work and run retreats and service programs at my high school in Cincinnati, which was, again, 2 years that were absolutely incredible, that I really call kind of pivotal in this journey that I'm now on, which was, after those 2 years, I decided I wanted to pursue a master's degree. And at the time, I had no idea you can study higher education administration to ultimately work at a university. And so as I'm 2 years out of school, I realized you could study going back to work at an institution. Thought that is exactly what I need to be doing. Ended up doing a kind of a grad school search and decided it was time to leave Ohio. I wanted to kind of get to a whole new area of the country. I was dating my now wife, and she kind of encouraged me to look to New England, the East Coast. I had never been. I think D.C. may have been the only city I had been in like the whole East Coast. And so we went to New York City, we went to Boston, we toured New England, visiting some schools, and decided, I need to get out of Ohio for this experience, and ended up landing at the University of Vermont.
Hello. Who's that been on? Hello.
This is an invasion. Is Lamont behind this invasion? Oh my goodness. In the civilized world, Mr. Lamont, we let each other know about these kinds of things before they happen. It's all good. Justin, I apologize for my colleague's lack of civility.
No, that's great.
I think we've doubled your audience.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. I'll continue. I was just sharing a brief background. I'm glad you guys could join us. That was very cool.
No, there's a stuff in the way. Oh, there is.
Oh yeah, this is great. So real quick, I'll just finish up a real quick background, and then attended graduate school at the University of Vermont in Burlington. If you've ever been to New England and Vermont, Catamounts. And ended up spending 4 years up there. My first job after I finished my program was to actually run a tour guide and work in an admissions office. And it was during that job where this idea for Welcome to College started to kind of to rest in my mind and start kind of thinking about it. And one day in May of 2004, after being in class one afternoon in grad school, the name Welcome to College kept ringing in my mind. I was doing some kind of brainstorming at the time. I was working with some students in an honors college, and one of the students was a domain harvester. And in 04, it was kind of early time to be like buying up domain names. This was before Facebook, it was before Twitter, before all the big social media stuff is out. But he started to talk to me about domain names, and when the Welcome to College name was ringing, I'll never forget it. It was one morning, I was laying in bed. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning. I just kept thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what, I have to go see if it's available. And I got up out of my bed, it was 2:15, searched domaindiscover.com, and it was available for $16. And I bought it, and I went back to bed. And it was like, finally, like, it was out of my head. I was like, I got it. I don't know if I'll ever do anything with this, but I have it. Like, it is owned now, and hopefully maybe one day I'll do something. Well, then life happened. I get married. I had a couple children. I continued to work in admissions. All the while, I was thinking about this idea to ultimately build a site that would serve as like my guidance counselor did for me, which was, if I didn't have that guidance counselor back in high school that just kept saying, Justin, I think you should tour the University of Dayton. I think it's a good fit for you. You know, I would have never probably done that. And who the, you know, I don't know where I would have ended up, but that tour that day was the turning point of the rest of my life, because that experience at the university, which then launched me into this career in higher education, and the many relationships that ended up happening in my life. So I mentioned my wife. I met her at the University of Dayton. We have 3 kids now. All these things start to happen, and I always go back to, man, if I never took that tour, you know, my life would be completely different. And I will also say, every job that I've had since I left the University of Dayton, I've absolutely loved. From the standpoint, I have never truly felt I have actually worked. In any job I've had, I've always been able to say in my mind, I cannot believe I'm actually getting paid to do this. And I can say that because I didn't take the regular route, you know, which was just to go to Chicago and take the job and make money and be a marketing analyst. I went the route of kind of following a deep-rooted passion that I had, which ultimately is rooted in helping students find what I found on that tour to the University of Dayton that day. You know, I found something that was the perfect fit for me, and it was. I had the best 4 years of my life at the University of Dayton. And the interesting part about the journey was, so I continued to work in admissions in Vermont. A job opened back up at the University of Dayton in the alumni side of higher education. And I decided at that point in time to come back to the Midwest. And it was 2006, we moved back to Dayton. I started to work with our alumni, and I was meeting our alumni all over the country. This was a fascinating job, and it was a fascinating job, again, because of one major thing, relationships. I got to form relationships with people who were doing awesome things in their career and life all around the country in support of giving back to help students at UD be able to have these experiences. And so as I'm meeting all these alumni across the country, what's in the back of my mind is this idea that you know, again, every year in May, the Domain Discover email would come and say, are you going to repurchase this domain? So every year I had this like yearly reminder of like, hey, don't forget about this. Don't forget about this. And ultimately, it was 2009 when kind of a set of things started happening in my current position at the university. There was a lot of change, a lot of new people that were coming into the department, and there was during this change, the culture became very different. There were some people that had to be let go because of the changes. The energy was just not an energy that I like to be around. I need to be in a positive work environment. And some stuff started to get a little crazy, and so I decided, you know what, now may be the time. And I met with some people about the idea who said, man, that's great, do you have a business plan? And I said, no. And they said, well, you need to get this down on paper. And in 2009, I wrote the business plan for Welcome to College, and I left my full-time position. I was at the time fundraising and doing advancement work for the University of Dayton Athletic Department. I'm a huge college basketball fan, so I literally had a dream job. I was flying with the Dayton Flyers on charter flights all around the country, going to Puerto Rico, basically to entertain the other alumni that were going to support University of Dayton athletics. And when I announced that I was leaving, I did that for a couple of years, I announced that I was leaving, and I think people really thought I had lost it, because it was a perfect job for me. But what these people didn't understand is that this idea had been rooted in my mind in 2004, that for 6 years was building and growing to the standpoint of, I have to do this. And I literally, my wife was pregnant with our third child. We had some conversations. I literally saw the window closing from the standpoint, if I wait much longer as the kids get older, I'm probably never going to be able to take this risk. And we had a conversation about it in 2009, 2010, which obviously at that time it was also kind of a pretty rough economic time for our country. And so when I did make this announcement that I was leaving to pursue this startup idea, I had a lot of people question me, make sure I was mentally okay, and I really knew what I was getting into. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I did know I had a deep-rooted passion, this idea I had been thinking about for 6 years, and I had to give this a shot. And in 2010, we launched the company Welcome to College, which was a website, originally started as a website to help students keep track of their college visits. Kind of like a TripAdvisor meets Yelp, so students could kind of hear what other students are saying as they go on their college tours across the country. Something very interesting happened, because I would not be in this room speaking to you today if it wasn't for a meeting I had about a year ago. We were about 2 years into doing this company, and I think I was almost driving the company into the ground because we were so focused on making money. As a startup, again, it's your lifeline, and as we created this company, it was free for students to use, but our revenue was generated by colleges. And we were so focused on the colleges because we needed them to support and to see value in this, and we did. We started growing. We were working with about 30 institutions all over the U.S., but we spent, again, 2 years focused on the colleges. When I shared to you the passion that I have, it rests around in helping high school students find that fit. We weren't focusing on that. Something happened about a year ago. I had a conversation with somebody, and I shared and alluded to some of this in the TED Talk, which was somebody gave me a book called Flourish. It was written by a positive psychologist by the name of Martin Seligman. And I read this book at the end of last year. And as I read this book, Flourish, basically what Seligman states is he's building a construct around well-being and happiness that can scientifically be measured to prove that if human beings find these elements in their life, their likelihood to flourishing in their life, which is even beyond the word happiness. Happiness is a part of flourishing. Flourishing is like the ultimate state of being and philosophy of life. Like if you're flourishing, everything is in sync. And there's 5 components of it. And after I read this book, and we could talk more about it, after I read this book, I realized what we were doing at Welcome to College and our passion wasn't just about helping students find fit. What happened to me at the University of Dayton was that I flourished. And I was able to kind of read in this book, these now were the reasons why I flourished. Everything connected. And so as this connected, I'm like, this is the stuff that we want high school students to be understanding and tracking as they go on their journey. So my first email in 2013 was right to Martin Seligman. I wanted to meet him. I wanted to go and chat with him to say, I have this idea. I think this could be a major application for the college search experience. So I emailed Seligman, and I get a stock email back. I start Googling him and realize this is like, you don't want to talk about a TED Talker. This guy's the founder of this movement called positive psychology. I look him up. He speaks internationally around the world. He is just, in the whole psychology circles, just one of the icons, if you will. And so I'm not surprised. I get the stock email back. But in the stock email, I started reading everything that he sent back, and there was like all these other connections that he was making. If you're interested in our master's program, if you're interested in this, and all these other contacts. One of which was a contact that I then Googled next. It was the director of this master's program. And I'm thinking, oh, look this guy up. This is where it gets good. I look this guy up, and on the first page of Google, there's a Dayton Daily News article. So I look at the Dayton Daily News article and realize this guy spoke in Dayton about 3 years ago, and he's a Dayton native. He grew up in Dayton, went to Cedarville University, and I'm reading this article and I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is the connection. I'm going to get to talk to these guys somehow, some way. So I emailed this guy, James, and James gets back to me almost within a day and says, that is so awesome that there's an energy in Dayton around this type of work. He's like, I would love to talk with you, however. I kind of threw out an email that said, I'm going to be out in Philly next week. Is there any chance you have to grab a cup of coffee? And he sent a note back that said, I'm actually leaving town the day after to go to South America to speak at this big convention. He's I'd love to get together. If you happen to be here in Philly, we're having a colloquium, the day you're going to be out here. You're more than welcome to attend it. And wasn't 100% on just going to go to a colloquium. I really would love to meet somebody. But I said, thank you so much. If it works, I'd love to be there. 3 days later, that was on a Tuesday, on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, I get an email from somebody else at Penn that he had passed it on to. It was the postdoc researcher under Seligman that does all the research around this construct that he's creating to measure well-being and happiness. And she reached out and said, if you're going to be in Philly, I can meet with you on Tuesday or Thursday. And so literally I had, this was Friday, booked the flight. On Tuesday morning, I was at the University of Pennsylvania, standing in a room about this size, around a table about this size, grabbing a sandwich, about to go into this colloquium. I met the postdoc student. James, the guy from Dayton, happened to be there because he was leaving the next day to go to South America. So I got to meet James, and then guess who walks up next to the table? Martin Seligman. And James says, Marty, this is my buddy from Dayton, Justin, who's working on this site to apply, perma-constructs to the college search. And next thing I know, I'm in a 20-minute conversation with Martin Seligman, which then turned into Martin Seligman saying, would you like to sit in my class later today? You're more than welcome. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in a class at Penn that's taught by Seligman. He had another professor with him. He's maybe there for 4 classes the whole semester. So I share this story only because that moment changed the entire course of 2013 and the future of what we're doing with Welcome to College. And we can talk more about this in a moment, but that relationship that started that day in January has now unfolded into a partnership that we're working together with them on new assessments and research that we could be out helping students to better understand these constructs. And that's basically the birth of what I talked about at the TEDx conference, which was MARV. One of the things that Penn was excited about is that we've got this vehicle that we're taking around the country to meet with students about this whole topic. MARV originally stood for Mobile Automated Research Vehicle. 2 years ago, we created this concept to build energy and awareness to get kids excited about the college search. Little did we know, and after this work with Penn, they said, you already have the acronym for what we need for this message. And I'll never forget it because I spent a week in May with the researchers doing a deep dive at Penn, and I left there brainstorming. And I was kind of resistant at first to want to change the acronym of MARV because most people knew it as this vehicle. But as I started putting the dots together, Marv stood for so much more than a vehicle. Marv actually stood for everything that I found that day at that visit to the University of Dayton, and Marv actually stood for everything that our mission as a company was to do to help students. And so, again, there's a few more stories that I could get into in regards to what I'll call the serendipity of life that has happened since that January email. This entire year has been dominated by following links that started with that connection at Penn that are not driven by any type of revenue for the company. They are links that I've been following that tie into our deep-rooted mission and passion of helping students flourish in their life. The people we've started to be connected to and engaging with are connections that I know in the future are going to be way more important than if we would have kept just going after colleges to build Welcome to College. And I've probably met all of, if I had to name, and one of the things I was going to ask you when we go around was if you were to meet one person for lunch this year, who would that be? Because this year, in 2013, I've been able to meet probably 5 of those people, the top 5 of those people that I would have put on my list at the beginning of the year in 2013. And I've met all 5 of them, and I can run through who they are. Martin Seligman being 1, Simon Sinek being 2, Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, being 3, Gary Vaynerchuk, somebody big in social media marketing, being 4, and the 5th would probably be one of the top leaders at the Lumina Foundation, which is the 2nd largest education foundation in the U.S. behind the Gates Foundation. 5 people that if I had to meet, I got to physically engage and interact with all 5 of these people this year, and I don't believe it was by coincidence. I truly believe it's because we've locked into what I'll call our noble cause, a higher purpose in regards to what we're trying to build as an organization, and we've started to follow these links. And by following these links, again, not really even unsure or fully aware which and why they're taking us to these places, but as we've gone to these places, these are the people that we're meeting and engaging with. So when I think about the year 2013 and the fact that it was able to end with the TEDx experience here in Dayton, to have 8 minutes to share a message that from the process of creating that, this year has been the year that we've been building this message. And to be able to get up there on a stage and share this with 1,000 people, and now ultimately, hopefully, when it hits the YouTube, be able to get much more broadly, to have that moment happen this year, when I look back and I reflect on this year, again, the only thing I can say why these things are happening is that at the beginning of 2013, we really locked in to our kind of noble purpose and cause for what we're trying to do. And I call them invisible hands, or the concept of flow. These things are happening right now to us because we are following something that we deeply care about that can impact other people in a positive way. And when that happens, things start to align around you almost like a magnet. And people are brought in and engaged with your story in ways that you can't necessarily plan out. And I'm going to stop because I could go on forever. But I wanted to just share with you a little bit about the journey that we've been on, why that TEDx was such an amazing opportunity to share. And, we've got... I would love to share with you where some things are going next, because I think there's a reason why I'm in this classroom today, to share some exciting things around the community of Dayton that I want to talk about in regards to especially the kind of student leadership component that I think could be a critical component to an energy that is brought back to Dayton. When I say Dayton, specifically the urban core of Dayton. So I want to spend some time talking to you about that. And I've got a ton that I can talk about. So I want to hear from you guys and answer your questions on how I can help and what else you want to know from our story. Now with the bigger group, this might be hard to maybe hear from everybody individually. So maybe we bypass that just in the nature of time and to be able to.
If you wanted to get some info from the TED class kids, you're welcome. I think everybody's okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Just because I know some of these folks from those videos and I met some of you, if the TED class could just do, here's what I want to know real quick from the TED class. Your name, your year in school, and your one person, if you could sit down to tomorrow for lunch, living or dead, who you would want to meet and why. Anybody want to start? Alec, lead us off.
Alex, I'm a senior. I graduated in 2014. And I think off the top of my head, the person I would want to sit down for lunch with is he's a music producer right now. He kind of, when I listened to his music, it kind of changed my whole perspective. And his name is Flying Lotus. That's his artist name. But he's actually the nephew, I think, of John Coltrane's sister.
Okay.
Something like that. Really weird connection, but that's awesome too. So I really want to sit down with him.
Yep.
Because he does a lot of jazz
Yep.
and electronics. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm Leah. I'm a senior, and sort of the first person that popped into my head is, her name is Kimbra, and she's also a music artist. She's very interesting. She's from New Zealand. She was in that really famous song, Somebody That I Used to Know. She was like the female singer for that, and she's really unique, very creative. Her music's really interesting, and her lyrics are really cool. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm Simran. I'm a junior, and this person isn't like, well, my dance teacher, her mom was like her huge inspiration, and so she was an actress in India, and she's like a great dancer, and she gives my teacher great advice, and so I would love to meet her sometime.
Thank you.
I'm not on the TED class. I'm not either.
I'm Levi. I'm a senior, and I think I would like to meet Steve Jobs just because of what he's been able to do. I would like to really know what inspired him to create the Mac and what really allowed him to be able to move forward and progress the company, and why he was fired and why he really came back and was willing to come back.
Calligraphy class.
Oh, okay, I can go. I'm PJ. I'm also a senior, and I think if I had to meet one person, it would actually be my grandmother, my mom's mom, just because I've never met her before, and I feel like it would be cool to kind of have that missing piece of the puzzle in my family and see how she raised my mom.
Awesome.
I'm Alex. I'm a junior, and it's hard because there's a lot of people, and one of the top people would actually be the same person as Sini, but I would say Kanye West, just because as crazy as people think he is, I think he knows a lot, and not only is he one of the best musicians, I think he knows a lot just about social and world and stuff.
Awesome.
I'm not going to play the class, but I'll share.
Okay.
I'm Ian, I'm a junior, and I think that the one person most... who I would sit down with would probably be this Buddhist monk that came to my house. Just like he was on his way back from the airport. His name it was Lama Pema, right? And I just remember I was really young at the time, so this might have been some of the fascination. But he just comes in my house. He's like wearing the orange robes. His friend is wearing like those big orange and red monk robes. And he has like these like really hip sunglasses on, which was really cool. It's this old guy, and he comes in and he just starts petting my cat. He's so happy, and he's like talking about the cats. And he's just engaging with me, and I'm like 10 at the time. And I'd love to sit down with him again. Just like it was so easy to like be around him.
Interesting. Cool.
If you come back to me. I'm really not sure at all.
That's all right. We missed you guys here.
I'm Lexi, and I'm also a senior. I'd probably sit down with my great-grandfather. He just recently passed away, but I love to get the chance to actually talk to him, and I just recently learned a bunch of stuff. He was involved in the SALT talks. So I'd love to get some information from him and see what exactly he was involved in.
Great. Thank you.
Probably my great-great-great-grandfather. Because lately, well, my grandma did a lot of like family stuff, so she tracked her. Oh, I'm Evan, by the way. But my grandma did a lot of like family stuff, so we tracked our family like far back, and I like was reading all these documents about this guy, and he was like, he like created a town in like Ohio and stuff, and it was like a port town that was responsible for like all this manufacturing and stuff. And he was like a politician, a lawmaker. He like handcrafted violins, and was a libertarian, which is like kind of this long political like following of my family, which is just interesting. It should be interesting.
Awesome. Thanks.
I'm Glenn. I'm in the tape class. I'm a very senior. And I think the person I'd like to sit down with is a gentleman named Reggie Ray, who got his doctorate in world religions from the University of Chicago, and then taught at Naropa University and at University of Boulder. And I'm actually going to meet. I'm going to spend 3 weeks with him. In the next 3 weeks, really, after this one. It starts on Sunday, we'll come back in January, and it's a meditative retreat.
How did you make the connection?
It's a story as long as yours. I'm following it.
Yeah.
But I think you're here probably for a reason too. I don't know what it is. And remember the Steve Jobs talk about you can only connect the dots backwards?
Yeah.
So you can't tell the story forward,
right.
But if you've got the guts to follow the connections, those moments that Justin spoke about, who knows where they go. And
right.
For broad strokes, Justin, I'll tell you, I feel like colleges like Dartmouth and some other colleges were established to convert Native Americans to what was considered more civilized living. And I kind of feel like I grew up like a little Indian kid, not knowing any better than to suck up the spirit of school. I didn't know about GPAs, I didn't know about honor societies, I didn't know about that. So I always watched the people teaching me and what their spirit was, what their essence was, and why they were doing what they were doing. And I felt like schools and churches were mean. A lot of what I heard happening to kids there, and me too, God, if you really listened hard, you stayed low and you weren't human. You did the discipline, you did the industry, but I thought I wasn't crazy, and I could show you in the academic disciplines my truth, right in your discipline. And I spent the last episodes, first 25, little Indian boy, second little one, trying to do what you're supposed to do. Engage in the industry, learn the disciplines, learn the skills, do the stuff. And it's hard. I think schools and churches, and I think they need a big, huge breath of fresh air. They need to get out of their heads and into their bodies, out of their frameworks and into reality. and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think the TED class works. I think some of the other things we do around here works because our education is infused with spirit.
I love it.
So
I love that. And actually, I meant to say
I
at the beginning,
your story.
I think this is the coolest thing. I have never heard of a school that has a TED class. So number one, I commend this entire school and you guys for taking it and you for teaching it. I think this might be the coolest thing ever, and I can't wait to tweet about it later to share with all my education people.
Can I tell you how we got here? Just everybody to know this. Brian Zarnoda sent me a video. Brian Zarnoda, sorry, Zarnoda's on my mind this morning. Brian Licata sent me a TED talk. I never heard of TED. I watched it, I looked at the site. Oh my gosh. I said to an administrator, or to Brian, and then an administrator, we could run a course with this, and we did it. That's sort of a short version, but the idea is, think of how many schools you could do that in.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
You have to fill out a plan with a vision and objectives. I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
We just had those moments.
Yes.
Do you dare follow them?
Right. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let all my students introduce themselves because we don't want to waste precious time. But I'm Matt Lamont. I'm the root
Not in the TED class.
Government teacher who is inserting my kids into this session, and really want to thank you for joining us. It's a great opportunity for them. They're almost all sophomores, so the sooner we can get them going on that, the better.
Yes.
Number one, so that's why I didn't hesitate to jump in. My apologies.
You're great.
For doing it. So
it's our school.
I love that.
That's kind of what we do.
I just saw the door starting to open.
Yeah. The other thing is, and again, I want to ask this question of you quickly. If there was one person that I could sit down and have lunch with, do they have to be living or dead? If there was one person that I could sit down and have lunch with, it would be Thomas Jefferson. And to me, it would be awesome to have that opportunity. But I'm not going to die and see if I run into him someplace.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to share? Or?
Mine would be this photographer, Ansel Adams. And my name's Trey. I'm a senior. And for him he took a lot of really famous pictures of some national parks and whatnot, and to see, to talk to him about like the definition of beauty and like how you find beauty in your life and like how he sees it on the earth, I think it'd be really like helpful in like finding that key goal or that key passion that you're all constantly motivated by because you think it's beautiful and like find beauty in it. I think it'd be really cool because his ability to always find beauty, obviously with the instrument like the camera, but to find or see things and see the beauty in things that we just kind of look by every day and be able to capture that's really cool because I think it's something that if you want to learn how to capture the beauty in your life instead of like taking for granted a lot of the moments, a lot of the people, a lot of experiences that you have, and utilizing every opportunity to find more beauty.
Awesome.
I guess I'll share. My name is Chaz, and I'm a senior. And if there was one person I would love to sit down with and have lunch, I think hands down that person would be the Dalai Lama.
I can arrange that.
I'll come back to that in a minute. I want to open it up to you guys. Questions, more thoughts on what you've been thinking and.
You raised your hand. What exactly? I didn't look at the website. I wanted to look at the website.
Yeah.
I wanted to see like what are the elements of it? Like is it like how do you find that sort of like?
So right now, and it's in transition. Right now, the site's still kind of built out the way it was when we created it, which it's basically you can go on, you create an account, you add schools to your quote my schools list. And when you visit them, you can go in, and we've got an 11-question, we call it impression tracker, where you can go in and basically rate on a 1 to 10 scale, but also there's a comment box. You can either make those comments public or private. If you make them public, they'll be shared on that university's wall or profile page so that others, it's all non-identifiable. So all it would say is a student from Ohio said, and then there'd be the comment. However, we're probably about 3 weeks away from these first assessments that we've been working on with Penn on. We're actually going to be able to track and have questions so that you can track MARV. MARV meaning accomplishment, relationships, and vitality. So our whole survey assessment is going to change. And those 11 questions, which right now are about like academics, campus life, dining, all the kind of typical stuff. Yes, that's all important. However, we want students to start tracking MARV, and we've built questions around each of those components so that as you're on your visits, you'll be kind of forced to think, if you're using Welcome to College, a whole different way. And hopefully have you ask these tour guides questions that they need to be asked when you're on these campuses to really understand if this is a good fit for you or not. From really the school culture side of things, but also really it's going to, I think, become a site where you also can kind of put in, there's going to be a deeper profile where you can put in things about your passions, values, interests, things like that. So we're hopefully early January, you're going to see the site completely kind of transformed very soon. But right now it's still kind of built the way it was been used for the last couple of years.